Sexual assault has deep, potentially life-lasting psychological effects, but there are resources that can help with the mental impact of it. For the new people here, we are dedicated to protecting children and minors, specifically females, from sexual harassment. We sincerely hope to accomplish educating our viewers on the different resources and hopefully prevent this problem.
In this episode, we will be discussing the effects of sexual violence on victims and the resources available. I am Jocelyn.
And I'm Wendy.
And we are Her Story. Just a recap of all the other topics we have discussed in the other episodes. The problem, obviously, that being sexual harassment against women and minors, and the systematic and structural failures, it being how rape is the most underreported crime. Globally, 1 in 3 women have experienced physical or sexual violence. Apparently, about 63% of sexual assaults are not reported. So essentially, this leaves a general amount of victims without justice, and instead they suffer the various long-term effects of sexual assault. So victims of sexual assault may suffer significant psychological and behavioral effects such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, and sleep disorders, according to a resource article by Ramapo College of New Jersey. Additionally, survivors of sexual harassment may suffer from substance abuse and suicidal ideation as well.
It can be difficult to recover from, even years later, because of how impactful it is for an individual's life. And it can also be difficult to receive treatment because they may not feel comfortable enough to share their experience.
Challenges associated with sexual harassment include, as I said before, substance abuse, suicidal ideation, and mental health disorders. Following the assault, it is common for victims to cope with the psychological, emotional, and physical effects through substances. Substance abuse is harmful as individual tries to drown their pain, that the harmful memories they may have of it, and they may want to drown all that trauma with drugs and or alcohol. Furthermore, a survivor of sexual assault may have suicidal thoughts, as I said before, as a result or as a response to their trauma. Feeling or thinking with the pain and memories of the assault can be exhausting and frightening for victims, leaving them with suicidal tendencies. So we have a chart about the people who are affected. So typically, it's not just who is affected, but what is affected. But obviously, the victim is affected. Anyone can be harassed. Gender, age, race, orientation, or identity doesn't really matter to these perpetrators. But obviously, like we focus on here, women are more likely to be victims of sexual harassment. This also applies to LGBTQ plus people too. Women are the ones who are mainly impacted by this issue. Statistically, as we've stated before, 1 in every 3 women is sexually harassed. So it is clear that they are the people who are mostly affected. Family members of the victim are also affected by the aftermath of the sexual assault of their child. They are forced to see their kids suffer the various consequences such as mental health and other possibilities. An interesting fact that I found was that rape costs the economy an estimate of $3.1 trillion, and the government contributes about $1.1 trillion of the lifetime economic burden. And in addition to the family members that are affected by the aftermath, the friends of the victim might feel distant from them, or they could even feel the impact of the assault as well. Friends may also feel emotional reactions. One of the things that is mostly impacted when it comes to victims of sexual assault is their mental health. Like I said before, victims of sexual harassment suffer severe psychological effects, including anxiety, depression, sleep disorders, weight loss or gain, and lowered self-esteem. Yeah, that just kind of goes over all the list of effects victims of sexual assault may go through.
So locally, since we live in the Los Angeles area, I'm going to be listing some of the resources that can help victims. One of these organizations is called Peace Over Violence, which offers support and informs others about sexual assault and domestic violence. The YWCA Greater LA, this provides crisis intervention and counseling for victims. The Genesee Center provides services in shelters. The LA County Department provides therapy and support services for mental health. Another one of these resources that is available is the East LA Women's Center, and this center gives support and services, and the Safe LA gives information and gives crime survivors a resource center so that way they can know what to do in the aftermath.
I have some laws here. I also want to go over some of the local laws we have here, which mostly consist of obviously here in the LA area as well as the state of California. So according to the Civil Rights Department of California, employees or job applicants who have been sexually harassed may file a complaint of discrimination with CRD within 3 years of the act. California companies with 5 or more employees are obligated to provide a harassment prevention training within 6 months of hire and every 2 years. The Fair Employment and Housing Act provides protection from harassment or discrimination in employment. Title 8 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 makes it illegal for employers to allow anyone to be sexually harassed at work by anyone else. And finally, government agencies such as the California Civil Rights Department and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission are organizations that provide resources for victims of sexual violence here in California.
So nationally, we do have some resources that can help anybody who was affected. I will be listing some of them. One of these is the RAINN, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, and it connects you to local resources in order to help you. Another one is the National Alliance to End Sexual Violence, the EEOC, which is actually a government program that helps you. The National Network to End Domestic Violence, the National Center for Campus Public Safety, the Students Active for Ending Rape, also known as SAFER, and lastly, the Victim Rights Law Center, which primarily focuses on going against rape and lets victims know about their rights.
I also have some national campaigns and awareness movements, one of them being the hashtag #MeToo, which is a social movement and awareness campaign against sexual abuse, sexual harassment, and rape culture. The It's On Us campaign is one that is building the movement to combat sexual assault on campuses throughout the United States by providing students the tools they need to create a campus culture of prevention. And I would also like to talk about the I Am Vanessa Guillen Act, which is a recent law that revamped military investigations into sexual assault and harassment. It was signed by Biden in 2021, and it criminalizes sexual harassment under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And also, around the topic of laws in the U.S., there is a time limit of 180 days, I believe, to report sexual violence, but it may be extended by state laws. And finally, the National Sexual Assault Hotline in the U.S. is a resource available 24 hours, and it is accessible through the number 1-800-656-4673.
So globally, I'm going to go over some of the resources that can help women. And some of these organizations include Take Back the Night, Alliance for Hope International, End Violence Against Women International, Esperanza United, Global Network of Women's Shelters, No Move, and RIRE, Interamericana de Refugios.
So, over 122 countries prohibit sexual harassment in the workplace, and 116 extend this protection to both men and women. Although the hashtag #MeToo movement started in the US, it is also considered international. The campaign has made employers aware of the global risk posed by sexual harassment. Escape the Corset is a Korean movement that called for women to liberate themselves from sexual, social, bodily, and psychological oppression. And finally, South Korea's 48 movement serves as an opposition of South Korea's patriarchal state and pro-natalist policies.
So most of these organizations are providing resources such as shelters, law assistance, and therapy to those who were affected by sexual harassment. And they are also providing information to educate the public. And the government has a program called the EEOC, which prevents harassment in the workplace.
Some resources such as hotlines and departments offer legal services, public policies, and advocacy to help victims of sexual harassment. While researching about sexual harassment, I actually found it surprising that out of the 193 countries that are member states of the United Nations, only 2/3 of UN member states have legislated prohibitions of sexual harassment in the workplace. So I just found that interesting, actually.
Another fact that surprised me was that the manufacturing industry is one of the industries with the most reports of harassment. And I guess it's surprising because you wouldn't expect it in a place like that. I feel like you'd see it more in like healthcare or like sectors where there's more like public interaction, which I guess is just really surprising.
So yeah, we're gonna end it there. That was about all that we had to say. This was more of like an informational episode, if anything. I mean, it was kind of just listing the effects and the resources that are available to victims of sexual assault and violence in general. Obviously, we can't really comment on that other than just like listing, but we hope that you are more educated on the topic now, and if you ever need to reach out, access the resources that we may have listed. And there will also be another link down in the description for anonymous stories. If you are a victim of sexual violence and you feel comfortable doing so, then you may share your story anonymously, so we may share it here on the podcast. There's a consent form. You may put your name if you wish, obviously your story, and if you wish to be a guest on the podcast, then you may provide your contact information, so we may interview you on our podcast.
And if you want to help our cause, follow our podcast for future episodes. And our next episode will be about prevention and defense.
Thank you.
Thank you.